Two people can have the same height, the same weight, and exactly the same BMI. But inside their bodies, the picture may be completely different. One may carry relatively little fat around the internal organs. The other may carry significantly more, even while appearing thin and healthy. The scale cannot show you this difference, and BMI cannot show it either. So what exactly is visceral fat? Why does its location matter? And which simple health signals can reveal more than body weight alone? In this episode of the Metabolic Code, we will separate genuine metabolic science from exaggerated claims and show you what the numbers can and cannot tell you. Most of the fat you can pinch is subcutaneous fat. It sits beneath the skin and stores energy, insulates the body, and helps produce hormones. Visceral fat is different. It is stored deeper in the abdomen, between and around organs such as the liver and intestines. Having some visceral fat is normal. The problem is excess accumulation. Visceral fat is not simply hidden body weight. It is a biologically active tissue. Research has linked larger visceral fat stores with insulin resistance, abnormal blood lipids, higher blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease. That does not mean one fat cell is silently causing a heart attack. It means that where fat is stored can add information that total body weight alone does not provide. BMI is calculated from only two numbers, weight and height. That makes it fast, inexpensive, and useful for screening large groups of people. But BMI does not directly measure body fat. It does not show muscle mass. And it cannot show whether fat is stored under the skin, around the waist, or deep inside the abdomen. Imagine three people with the same BMI. One has more muscle, one has more subcutaneous fat, and one has less muscle but more central fat around the abdomen. The formula gives them the same number, even though their body composition may be very different. So BMI is not useless. The mistake is treating it as a complete metabolic diagnosis. This is why a person can fall inside the healthy weight BMI range and still have central obesity. Researchers often use terms such as normal weight central obesity or normal weight obesity to describe this mismatch. Skinny fat is the popular phrase, but it is not a medical diagnosis. Large observational studies have found that central obesity can be associated with higher health risk, even among people whose BMI is in the normal range. But this is also where sensational videos often go too far. A normal BMI does not mean you are secretly ill. A larger waist does not prove that you have dangerous amounts of visceral fat. And no single measurement can predict an individual person's future. The correct conclusion is simpler. Body weight is one piece of the picture, not the whole picture. Why can abdominal fat matter more than the same amount stored elsewhere? Part of the answer is biology. Visceral adipose tissue contains fat cells, blood vessels, immune cells, and signaling molecules. When this tissue expands and becomes dysfunctional, it can be associated with chronic low-grade inflammation and reduced insulin sensitivity. Visceral fat also releases fatty acids into circulation. Because of its location, some of this metabolic traffic is closely connected with the liver. Over time, these patterns can accompany higher triglycerides, impaired glucose control, higher blood pressure, and fatty liver disease. Notice the wording, associated with. Metabolic disease is not caused by one hormone, one food, or one fat depot acting alone. Genetics, activity, sleep, diet, muscle mass, age, medications, and existing health conditions all influence the outcome. Visceral fat is important because it can be one visible part of a much larger metabolic pattern. So how can you look beyond BMI without pretending to diagnose yourself at home? Start with 3 practical signals. Signal 1 is waist relative to height. A simple screening rule used in clinical guidance is to keep your waist measurement below half your height. That means a waist-to-height ratio under 0.5. To measure it, place a tape around the waist midway between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the hips. Breathe out naturally, record the measurement, and divide it by your height using the same units. A value at or above 0.5 can indicate increased central adiposity and is a reason to look more closely at overall cardiometabolic risk. It does not directly measure visceral fat, and it is not a diagnosis. Signal 2 is blood pressure. Blood pressure does not tell you where fat is stored, but a persistent elevation can be part of the same cardiometabolic pattern. One unusual reading is not enough. Repeated measurements and proper technique matter. Signal 3 is routine blood work. Triglycerides, HDL cholesterol, fasting glucose, and A1C can help a clinician evaluate how your body is handling energy. Again, none of these tests measures visceral fat by itself. Their value comes from seeing the pattern together. To quantify visceral fat more directly, researchers and clinicians use imaging. Computed tomography, or CT, can clearly separate visceral fat from subcutaneous fat. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, can also measure these compartments without ionizing radiation. These methods are accurate, but they are not usually ordered simply because someone is curious about body fat. Cost, access, radiation exposure in the case of CT, and the clinical reason for testing all matter. DEXA scans and some advanced devices can estimate body composition, but estimates are not identical to direct abdominal imaging. And a consumer smart scale cannot diagnose visceral fat, no matter how precise the number appears on the screen. The practical lesson is not to fear your body or chase one perfect number. Use BMI as a screening tool, not a verdict. Add a properly measured waist or waist-to-height ratio. Know your blood pressure. Review routine blood tests with a qualified healthcare professional, especially if you have a family history of diabetes or cardiovascular disease. Take medications that affect metabolism or notice several risk markers appearing together. And remember that central fat is not fixed. Regular physical activity, resistance training, adequate sleep, and a sustainable eating pattern can all support better cardiometabolic health. The goal is not to become lighter at any cost. The goal is to improve the full metabolic picture. The scale tells you how much you weigh. BMI tells you how that weight relates to your height. But neither one can tell you where your fat is stored or how your metabolism is functioning. That is why the bigger picture matters. In the next episode of the Metabolic Code, we will examine one of the most repeated claims in fat loss. Does insulin really lock fat inside your cells and make weight loss impossible? The answer is more interesting than the internet usually makes it sound.